Hi, this is Zoe, the Tantalising Stamper, and today I'm going to show you my project for January 2026 for the Global Creative Tutorial Bundle. And we're using new online exclusives and mini catalogue. It's a free choice. So I'm starting with using the Fragrant Layers bundle, which is an online exclusive. You've got this lovely die set. And I've cut them out, not very excitingly, in black and white, but it shows them. You can see all the dies, excluding that one, which I'm going to use. And this one doesn't cut the whole thing out, it cuts a frame around it as well. You could trim it yourself, but it's quite nice, and some lovely labels, flower stamens, stalks. And the stalks are great because you get this bauble on the end that you can then put the flower heads on, so that you've got something to actually stick rather than fiddling with little pieces. So I'm going to remove that one again, and then the stamp set is here that I'm using. Fragrant Layers. So it's a lovely stamp set, new packaging of course, and I think I've said in videos before that I've stamped them onto a piece of card which I've then laminated, which you could just keep them in the plastic that they come with, but I've just used the thick piece, and I can see exactly which ones are missing. For example, this one, which I've got on my block ready to go. So we'll pop that out of the way. I've then got for my card a white card base. I've gone for a 10th fold. I have some gold foil card. That's my die, and then I've got a matting layer that is going to have all my detail on. I've also got some scratch pieces that I'm going to stamp flowers on that I'm going to cut out, and this piece I've prepped with some double-sided adhesive sheet. If you haven't seen these before, it's rather nice because each sheet has got strips, so that it gives you different peel off areas, and you can cut it that way, you cut it that way, however it works for you. So I've got a piece here, you can probably just see the distinction between it there, and then that makes it easy for me to cut this die cut that I'm going to use. First thing I'm going to do is actually take this as well, and my piece with the double-sided tape on, because I'm actually going to cut two out of this, because this, I don't know about you, but using a whole piece of foil like that, it seems to be wasted when it's going to be a border. So I'm going to cut two out of there, hopefully, and then save those for another project. Okay, so I've got my flower there, and then excuse me, one gold, and just so you can see, if you struggle, some people get an inane happiness out of poking all of these out with a pokey tool or a pair of snips or something. But you've also got the option of the brush, which this is an old one, but you can get one to go on the picker tool that Stampin' Up has now as well, to just brush those excess pieces out of the way. And we'll just scoop those over there, out of the way. I'm sure I can find a use for them rather than just throw them away. So those I will put up somewhere safe. And then this piece, I've got this and several that I cut previously, all with double-sided tape on. And what I'm going to do is cover my matte layer with these pieces to give it a tone-on-tone background design. And if we just peel these off. So I'm going to start with a whole one and just pop that in the middle somewhere there. And then I can use these other pieces if I peel them off. Now you've got to be careful when you're just using parts, because if you peel it all off, it might stick somewhere where you don't want it straight away. So I think we'll go in there. Give it a good rub onto the card. Try not to rub it onto your work surface. And then what you can do with a pair of snips is just trim that piece along the edge from the reverse. like so. And then we'll keep that bit, we'll just stick it on the end of there. And we'll peel another one off. And so the process goes, and you just cover the whole piece of your matte layer, which I've made very slightly smaller than my base card. And I'm not giving measurements as such, because then depending on where you live, you can do it to suit your own design. So I think we'll have that one going down there, and again snip it off, and I will finish these and come back when it's all done. So there we are. I've got all my pieces, just need the last snips to cut those excess pieces off. Oops, try and do it straighter than I've just done that. And we'll cut that little piece there. And if needs be, if you're not happy and you make a mis-snip like I just did, and your edge is a bit wonky, unless it shows on your layer that you're going to mat it on, I wouldn't worry too much, but you could also cut it down a little bit. But bear in mind that you might have die cut these, so you don't want to cut it too small, but I think that will be absolutely fine on there. So I've trimmed it down. And for this, I'm going to use seal adhesive, and I'm going to put it on this piece rather than on here, because if I get it wrong and it oozes out with wet glue or something, it will make a real mess of my foil card. You could also emboss that if you wanted to, just to give it a bit more texture, but I think I'm just going to pop that on as is, because it is just a background, but it makes a really pretty background and shows lots of detail and was really quick and easy to do. And I've got a spare one for next time, so that's perfect. Then that will ultimately go onto there, but before I do that, I'm going to pop those to one side, and I'm going to bring in a piece of card. I've got my stamp, and I've got Memento black ink, so I'm just taking my ink pad to the stamp. So it's quite a large one, it makes it really easy to do that. Pop the lid on. Have I got ink everywhere? Possibly. And then we'll go in there, give it a good rub. If you've got a foam pad, you can obviously stamp on top of that as well. That'll give you a better edge. This gives a little bit, so I think it'll be okay. That's perfect. Look. Right, now the next thing is I've got a selection of blends. You can choose whichever colour you want on this, and I'm going to colour it in. I'm going to choose a way that I think the light would be, so I think I might take it this way perhaps. I've got lemon lime twist, so I'm going to start the leaves and we'll have the light come in this way, and I'm starting with light, but I want dark, so I'm going to come in, and to make it more controlled while I'm showing you, I'm going to use the bullet. So I'm working on the principle that the light is coming this way, as I said, so this will catch it a little bit. And then we've got, so as you can see, I'm not paying an awful lot of attention to where I'm colouring, because I'm not the world's best colourer, but also it's to show you that you don't need to be. And if you just put some detail on the leaves, it'll be darker down this end, won't it? And also sometimes with these types of things, if you leave a little bit of white space, it actually enhances the look of the leaves. So this time I'm going to use the soft edge just to fill it all in a little bit. And again, leaving some white space. so that it gives more of a light and dark effect. Blend it in. So down here where it's shaded by the other flowers, and certainly down this side, I'll probably colour it all in, but on the others just do a bit of blending. But it just makes it easier, and it gives you light and shade without you having to be an expert, which I think is perfect. And we do the same with the flowers. This time I've got bubble bath, so I'm going to start with the dark, and again use the lines of the image to help you. So be a bit dark around here, I think. And it means that you don't, as I say, have to be perfect. I think a lot of people worry about things for cards and stuff and what people will think when they receive them. But, you know, if you know someone that you think is an amazing colourer, that's great. But are they sending cards to your friends? Are your friends going to worry? Especially when a lot of your friends might not actually craft, but they're just impressed that you've made your card. So it doesn't really matter. So we've got a little bit of colour everywhere there. We'll have a bit more down here, I think. So, and then we can blend it all in with the lighter shade. And as I've done before, leave some light. So I like to draw it back. It seems to blend it quite nicely. You can always just gentle circles. You need to be careful with your nib though, your soft nib. Just use it literally as a brush. You don't need to scrub it or anything. So you want to keep it nice and useful. Just gently drawing back that darker ink and blending it with the lighter one. We'll put a bit around there because that's more likely to be under the shadow of that petal. Here too, the light will catch up there. There we go, so that's those. Maybe a little bit further. I think that will do. And I've got a trick that will do something with the white that I'll show you. And then actually I think I'll show you a little bit of yellow. So I've got light lemon lolly, and I'm just, in fact I'm going to go back to the dark again. So I'll start with the dark over here, blending it around, and where there's likely to be more shade. And this is great because if you went over like I did there with the pink, you can just over colour with the yellow, because I'm actually going to use Calypso Coral as well in a moment. So if you end up with a bit of orangey, that's fine. So there we've got the lighter lemon lolly, just to fill those bits. See how quick this is? It's really easy. And if we just use the very nib to just put a little bit of orange, to a bit more detail on our little flower spots, on those stamens that are there in the middle of the flowers. And the last thing will be to just carry on with these buds of flowers. So again, I'm going to start with the dark. So these bits that are closed, I'm working on the principle that they'll be a little bit darker. They're tightly held together, so the colour will be more intense until that flower opens. There we go. And again, back with the pink. I use the soft end this time, just to bring that all together. And then I've also used the pale Flirty Flamingo to just put a few dots in places on the darker areas where I think it would be darker. Just to put a bit more detail. Because you know those little blossom buds, when they're closed, you get sort of like a browny pinky colour around the edge, and it just, again, it just makes them look a little bit more authentic. We go back with the bullet end of the light and we can just blend it around. So now you're realising you don't need to be an expert, but I don't think it looks too bad at all. So there we go. And then the final thing that we need to do, provided I can find mine, yep, here we go, with those white spots, just to highlight them a little bit more, I've got some Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to put some Wink on the bits that I've left white. That will just add a little bit of shine, and again highlight the fact that the light is catching there and making a difference. And it just makes it so pretty. There we go. And again, it's not perfect, it doesn't have to be. There we go. Okay, now the die that I cut out these pieces with would go over this, but as you can see, it can blot out quite a lot of it. That looks quite nice, but I want to see the whole image. So on this occasion, I'm afraid it's fussy cutting, or it's a question of using this die, which again will cut out your flowers, but it leaves a frame around it, which you can then trim so it's even, and you could do that. But again, on this occasion, I'm going to use some scissors and just fussy cut it by holding it in my hand, using my left hand to turn the card to make the cutting much easier. And I will be back very shortly when it's done. So all cut out, and I'm almost ready to put my card together. I'm going to layer this like this, pop that on there, and then I've also, from the same set of dies, you'll see there's a little label over here, and I've cut one ready because I'm going, and I've done that in black because it really makes it pop. And it also makes the image pop a little bit more. So I'm going to emboss my sentiment on there. So I've got my embossing buddy there. I've got my Versamark pad. And then from the stamp set, I'm using Just a Note. Which makes it a great card for literally just a note to say happy birthday, you know, how are you, thinking of you, whatever you want it to be. And you could adjust it on the front and put mum, sister, whoever, just to enhance it and make it a little bit more personal. And I just need to get some white embossing powder and heat that. There we go. So we've got our sentiment. Just dust it off from the embossing buddy. I've also got one that I made earlier in gold, but I'll just show you the difference. So that one looks nice and it tones in with that gold. That's one way of doing it. You could, of course, then put that on like so, which looks quite nice. So you could have it like that, or you can just have black and white, and I think the black and white really pops. This one, you'll notice that I just cut round it with my snips, and again it's a question of moving your card so that your snips then adapt to it. So let's put this all together. I think we will put some sticky pads on the back of here. I like to use my Pick-a-Tool hook just to lift those off. I've got them all in one place then. out. There we go. And then I think we'll also raise the flowers themselves. So if we put some of these on, these are just the right size, which means you don't have to faff about too much. But again, I would support the outside pieces, like the leaves and things, just to keep them all together. And then some in, ooh, 2 went off there. Some in the middle just to support it there as well. And again, if we get the hook, just makes it easy. Take them off. And I love that it holds them all in one place so that they don't end up all over the house because they attach to the dog's fur. And then let's decide which way we're going to put this. I think that looks rather pretty. There we go. And our sentiment, we could, now then, I think that would look quite nice on there. So let's put a couple of sticky pads on this end and a little bit of seal on this end to hold it in place, but balance it up. There we go. Ooh, try and get it straight, Zoe. We can lift that leaf tip, ooh, over the top. Then something else we could put on would possibly be one of these nice little ladybugs just on a leaf, perhaps. There, maybe a little ladybug. And then if we want to carry on with the gold, and these are coming in the spring mini, they're rather nice. You've got some little clear dots that would look, could be rain or something on your flowers, and they're called Ladybug Garden Epoxy Shapes. And of course we've still, luckily, because I love these, we've got brush brass butterflies, so I'm going to pop one of those up there and maybe another little one over there and a larger one. Shall we have that down there, and maybe one more, because I like to put odd numbers of things. Now I've got one on its own and I've got 3 of those, but it makes 4 altogether. I don't know, maybe my thinking is mad, but if I put another one that way, there, and there we go. A nice pretty card for any occasion. Now, if you wanted it a little bit softer, this is one I did earlier, and I use the Saddle Brown Stays On ink, which you want to make sure you clean straight off your polymer stamps, but it just gives you a softer outline for colouring in, so you can go really bold and bright or a little bit more subtle. And also obviously I've put the just a note on a plain piece of black rectangle, and you can pop that in a slightly different position. It's entirely up to you. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.